Welcome to the Social Regressive. Sadly, our time with the Savage B22 FV-SR has come to a close. It's been a whole lot of fun. We've had a handful of challenges that we've done with this rifle in order to test its capabilities better for you guys so you can better understand its handling, its ergonomics, its weight, its balance, its overall accuracy. And I'm going to put a link over here to the full playlist because each of these we've broken down into individual videos so you can see how it performs in these various tests. Before we jump into the full retrospective review where we talk about those challenges and the hardware and how it's all worked out, I just want to give a big shout out to all the folks that have helped me get this review out to you guys. First off, thank you to my patrons of the Destructive Arts out on Patreon. These are guys that, chip in a couple of bucks every month to help me not only get some of the equipment that we're using here, but it also makes it a little bit easier for me to trade my work time for trigger time so that I can get out and get these reviews for you. Thank you to Savage, to Weaver, to Federal for helping to provide me with some of the equipment that we've been playing with here. This is a T&E gun, this is going back, and yeah, just thanks a bunch, you guys out there. You've been a great big help. As with all my rifles, I started out by removing the screws, making sure that everything was properly torqued down and that there was Loctite where the screws should have it, and then I was able to go out and do some group tests. Once I was pretty well assured that the accuracy of the rifle was very good and that the scope was right on, I went out and performed the egg challenge with this. And this one deviates from that centerfire egg challenge we've done before. That one is 300 yards prone, but this one has 3 different distances and it has 3 different positions. It starts in the standing position at 2 eggs at 25 yards. At 50 yards, you can sit or kneel. And then at 100 yards, you can go prone. And on this one, I only missed one. I missed the 50-yard kneeling egg, that first one, but everything else came together pretty well. This challenge was a real test for the scope. It's a Weaver Grand Slam multi-stop scope, which is weird and wonderful. It allows you to put in little markers on the turret to show where various drop values are. So if you know the distance to a target, or you can make a decent estimation, all you have to do is just spin up to that appropriate distance, and then your drop is dialed in. For windage, you use the reticle, which has a maximum of 12 MOA to each side of that center dot. It's a nice clean interface, it works really well, and it was very quick in this challenge. The scope and the rifle were a great combination for the silhouette match. The rifle itself is very accurate, even if it is a little imbalanced for this particular style of shooting. And the scope itself, since the ranges are known on this particular challenge, I was able to just quickly dial between the 40, 60, 77, and then 100 meter spots on that scope. And then I was able to use the reticle for any windage that I might have seen. The wind was actually pretty low, so I didn't have to deal with it too much, but the scope would have been up to the challenge. I also performed a sound test with this rifle using a suppressor and subsonic ammunition, and this is how we found that the pew sound in Hollywood myth is actually not a myth and that sound actually exists. Now, it is being improperly applied most of the time, but it's kind of neat to hear that that original pew sound probably was actually recorded by somebody. The B series of rifles includes 3 different chamberings. You can get 17 HMR, 22 mag, and you can get 22 long rifle, which we've been testing here. This is the FV-SR, so it has the heavy, short, and threaded barrel, but they also have some options with thinner kind of pencil style barrels, which would be great for hunting, and they have a heavy, longer one called the FV. And all of these have different applications. It's just going to come down to what you want. Muzzle threading is the AR-15 standard, half 28. The bolt throw is easy, and the action is pretty slick. If I could just give one recommendation to you guys that are going to shoot these things, it would be to not so much use the bolt knob as a handle to move things up and down, rather use it as a stop. So your fingers will be behind here. And that's because this bolt knob is actually pretty long. And if you get way out here, sometimes you can kind of bind up the action a little bit just because there's so much torque being applied to the front end of the bolt in the raceways there. One of the unique features of this rifle is that it does feature a barrel nut like you get on centerfire Savages. So you could ostensibly swap out barrels and you might even be able to change calibers. This action should be standard for the 17, the 22 WMR, and the 22 LR. So if you wanted to swap between them, I can see how it might be possible if you kind of change out some things around the magazine and swap out that barrel, and it just might work. Speaking of the magazine is a rotary arrangement, kind of like what you're used to seeing on Rugers. And for those of you that start loading this thing for the first time and you wonder if it can actually fit all 10 rounds in there, yes it can, and over time it will break in more and more so that you can actually get those in much more easily. This one did take quite a while to break in. Just like the sign says, there is indeed an AccuTrigger, and it is adjustable. However, it never did work that creep out. It still has creep in it. And I'll be curious to hear from some of you others that end up owning a B-series rifle, whether you have some creep in your trigger or if this is just a fluke. But you can see that you probably saw that tiny bit of take up before it kind of got to the next shelf and then pop. Now it is still light. It is still around that 2-pound mark. And really, that was one of the only things that was holding me back from better scores at the Silhouette Challenge, aside from the skills of the shooter, of course. There was the trigger here, and then there was the balance of the stock. We'll talk about the stock here. I have the plastic stock on mine. It's very lightweight, and it is actually more rigid than I was expecting. A lot of the polymer stocks can have a lot of flex to them, but this one is actually pretty stable, and in all the types of shooting that I did, it never seemed to interfere with accuracy at all. The only thing that it really interfered with was just the balance, since you do have this heavier barrel out front, and especially if you have a suppressor on the end, there just isn't enough weight out over the back of the rifle to make it very comfortable for long periods of shooting. It works just fine for, kind of quick stuff, quick target work, but yeah, it just doesn't have the weight back here. Of course, there are some fixes for that. You could put some extra weight in the back. You could get the hardwood model, which is one that looks really nice and I think is going to really fix that balance problem on all these rifles. It's going to put more of the weight at the back, and it should just be a bit more comfortable overall. The forearm of the rifle originally came with this tray installed between the inside of the forearm and the barrel. And this is intended, I believe, to give the forearm a little bit more stiffness, a little bit more rigidity. And I could feel before I removed it that it did. However, since the stock was flexed just a little bit to one side, it was just coming too close for comfort. It was just a little too close to that barrel. And I know if I were on a bipod, it would have been touching. So to remove interferences, I removed that tray. This grip angle, like I've mentioned before, is a very nice compromise between a hunter style and a target style. It really does kind of split the difference. It's comfortable in both situations. I shot it in a match, I shot it just out having fun, and it worked for both. It's quick and easy to deploy. It's very easy to get on that 2-position safety. You just reach up with your thumb and it's right there. You don't have to go reach over the top of anything to get it. And as far as other stock issues go, the buttstock is a bit on the short side, like I mentioned. I think it's about 13 inches length of pull, 13 and a half, something like that. It is rather short. If you do want to get a longer length of pull, like I would in my case, then it might be a good option to swap out the stock at some point, or they might have some spacers. If you do buy one of these B-series rifles with a plastic stock, and there are some really great reasons to do so, like keeping your overall weight low, but you want to be able to swap things out later for good, or just every once in a while swap it out for competition shooting or something like that, I'm sure there will be some aftermarket options. These things are just going to be ubiquitous. Boyd's at this point does not have a stock inletted for the B-series rifles, but I'm sure they will soon. This is a Boyd's At-1 right here, and this kind of features some of the funky things that you can get with this. And of course, it does have the adjustable butt pad and the adjustable comb, and this has their new Ripple laminate, which is kind of a weird thing. To me, this looks like a Gaboon Viper, and I'll be featuring this on another rifle build, but I'm sure that eventually they'll be making this and some other stocks for the B-series rifles. There is one thing that I need to point out on the barrel. Whatever the phosphate coating or whatever it is on here, It does not prevent rust quite as well as, say, the older bluing did. You can see these spots right here. These are where my fingers touch the rifle. And then in some cases, it was just by the time I got home, it had absorbed moisture and there was a little bit of surface rust. So I'll probably have to take a little bit of steel wool to this, and I had to keep it oiled just all the time. If you go out in the woods with this thing, if you go camping with it, make sure that you keep an oiled rag or something with you, because if you do touch the barrel or anything like that, then yeah, rust appears actually pretty quickly. Is the B22 accurate? Yeah, and this isn't even the really expensive special match stuff. These are mostly ammunitions that you're going to find in your local sporting goods stores or ordering online. This is the stuff that you'll actually keep in your bag. I shot all of these groups at 25 yards. These were unsuppressed right here. This is my one target ammo that I used, and this stuff turned out to be very consistent. I used this in some of the challenges that I shot, like the egg challenge. If you want a bit more information on these groups and the ammunition that I used, be sure to check out that first kind of pre-review video that I did, and that'll indicate what these are. For the most part, once I popped a can on the rifle, the groups tightened up considerably. And finally, since this ammunition was printing really well at 25 yards, I did test it out at 50 right here. That's a 5-shot group at 50 yards. And then at 100 yards. So that's about 1.5 inches. That's less than 1.5 inches across right there. Overall, I highly recommend the Savage B series of rifles. This one has been a whole lot of fun to shoot, and like I said, there are all kinds of options now where you can choose the exact rifle that's going to work for your situation. If you want just a squirrel gun, a pure squirrel gun, varmint gun, then you can go with that thinner barrel, and you can even stick with that plastic stock, and overall it's going to be really light to pack around. This might be something that you could sling on the side of your pack. If you want something that you can trick out more for competition shooting, you can go with that F model or FV model with the heavy barrel, longer barrel. And if you swap out a stock on that or get the hardwood model that Savage is producing, the balance is going to be good, the feel is going to be good. That'll be a really good option. And this one, like I mentioned in that initial review video, this one is kind of that compromise where you get a total overall lightweight package with this plastic stock, and you get a heavy barrel for all kinds of good accuracy even as you heat this barrel up. Of course, you get the threaded barrel, so if you wanted to do more kind of tactical 22 style shooting, you can pop a can on there or whatever you want to do. It works out really well. And overall, all of these rifles come in at a really good price point compared to the competition, and just especially compared to what you're getting. You're getting a good light adjustable trigger, you're getting a 10-round magazine, and a bolt that runs smoothly, and really I expect that no matter what barrel weight you get, the accuracy is going to be really good. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These 2 videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, The Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.